All right, good morning, everyone. It is 9:30 a.m. on Thursday, February 8th. We're in conference room 325. We are here for a hearing of the Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection. And first on the agenda today, we have House Bill 1688 relating to the environment, and this is requesting a statewide needs assessment conducted by Department of Health to help inform moving forward with an extended producer responsibility program for packaging materials and paper products. And first up to testify, we have Department of Health.
Hi, good morning, Chair Lowe and Vice Chair Cochran, members of the committee. I'm Lane Otsu, representing Department of Health, and we stand on our written testimony in support of the bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we have State of Hawaii Climate Mitigation and Adaptation Commission in support, Hawaii County Environmental Management Commission in support, County of Kauai in support, Flexible Packaging Association in opposition, Product Stewardship Institute in support. We have Recycle Hawaii in opposition, Hawaii Environmental Change Agent Solid Waste Task Force in support.
Hi, good morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, members of the committee. My name is Jolie Riff, and I'm testifying on behalf of the HECA Solid Waste Task Force today in strong support of HB 1688. The state of Hawaii lacks a sustainable solid waste management system, and the current practices of landfilling and incineration are costly, both detrimental to environmental and public health. These inadequacies, along with the resulting packaging pollution crisis, demand a shift away from a linear waste system into a more circular economy. And EPR policies alleviate this shift by placing responsibility for a product's lifecycle management on producers. This also shifts the economic burden of waste management from taxpayers and underfunded municipalities to the producers of these products, incentivizing source reduction, reuse, recycling, and ultimately limiting the amount of waste that we're seeing sent to landfills and incinerators. Now, opposition might pose that the most recent solid waste infrastructure for recycling grant given by the EPA funds many of these same activities outlined in the proposed bill. But 70% of this grant was allocated to Hawaii County alone, and the remaining 30% of this grant money that will go to the other counties goes to the Department of Health to simply observe and characterize the waste streams. None of these funds will be extended to accomplish the 13 out of 14 other objectives that this needs assessment covers. Therefore, this needs assessment does not duplicate existing efforts. It is a necessary complement. In the 2013 legislative sessions, legislators viewed 43 bills from 14 different states pertaining to EPR standards for plastic and packaging materials. And within the past year, Maine, Illinois, and Maryland passed legislation allocating funds for EPR needs assessments. Assessing the applicability of an EPR program for packaging in Hawaii will not only bring the state in line with broader national and global sustainability goals, but it will also showcase the state's commitment to environmental responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, we have Food Packaging Institute with comments, the American Cleaning Institute in support, and then Ameripen on Zoom, I believe. Is Lauren there? Lauren or Dan?
Yes. Hi, Chair Lowen. Sorry I'm not on video. I'm sitting in my car, so not really sure if the light is good enough, but aloha, and thank you so much for allowing me just to take a few minutes of your time. I represent Ameripen, which is the American Institute for Packaging and the Environment. We just have some concerns with the language. We've met with Chair Lowen to discuss some concerns. We love that it's a needs assessment and agree that that is the first step in Hawaii for extended producer responsibility. For packaging, there's just a couple things that we would like to see. We'd like to see the producer definition changed to be a little bit more closer to what a producer definition would actually look like in an EPR bill. And we have some suggested definitions that we can share. So that's in our written testimony. We also would like the addition of an advisory council. Maryland and Illinois both passed and signed EPR needs assessment bills last year that both had advisory councils as attached. I think it's really important for all folks to be working together on EPR and sharing data and information. And then lastly, we would like a producer responsibility organization to be chosen, similar to what Maryland did in their needs assessment. But I also stand on our written testimony. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And then we have, sorry, where was I? Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition, Ted Boland.
Thank you, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, members of the committee. Ted Boland on behalf of the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition and the Climate Protectors Hawaii. Hawaii is facing a crisis in its landfill capacity on every county. We're running out of room, and we're filling up the landfills with too much stuff. So we need to move to a more circular economy where we don't just use and toss, use and dispose, but actually reuse, refill, compost, and recycle where we can't do the others to move things on. Recycling is limited in Hawaii because of the lack of infrastructure and the geographic isolation. So some places it's more of a solution than here, but it's something to be considered as well. Given these problems that I've laid out, we need to change the way we handle the waste, and that's going to require, as I said, a more circular system where we reduce, reuse, compost, and recycle. The producers of packaging who profit from our consumption also should bear some of the costs of this. Currently, the costs are falling entirely on the taxpayers of the county, and they need to be more fairly equitably distributed. The packaging producers are also in a position, or in the best position, to redesign packaging in order to save costs. So we want to move to a more circular system, as I said, and we want to move to a system of extended producer responsibility. How do we get there? The first step is to have this needs assessment. We've worked with various parties, stakeholders over the last year, including the Department of Health and the committee chair, and I think we've come to a good proposal here that would move Hawaii toward getting the information it needs to eventually develop a full EPR system. So this is really a first step. It would ask the Department of Health to conduct a statewide needs assessment in consultation with stakeholders to determine what is needed to move to the more circular waste handling system with less waste generation, more reuse, improved collection and local processing, and extended producer responsibility for packaging materials and paper products. Please pass this bill. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Then we have Consumer Technology Association with comments on Zoom.
Aloha, and thank you guys for the opportunity today to testify on House Bill 1688 relating to the environment. My name's Allie Peck. I'm a Senior Manager of Environmental Policy with the Consumer Technology Association. We're the leading trade association representing consumer electronic companies from global startups, global brands to startups. So it's our perspective that a robust needs assessment is a critical first step to understanding how EPR for packaging could be implemented in Hawaii. But we strongly encourage a comprehensive stakeholder engagement process on the development of these policies in order to achieve a successful program. We also want to caution against a one-size-fits-all approach. We approach the packaging conversation from the unique perspective that accompanies complex durable goods like tablets, phones, electronics, packaging design flexibility for our producers to achieve desired environmental outcomes, including the reduction of damage to products during transport is critical for our industry, and that should be encouraged. And so we sometimes have trouble meeting broad source reduction goals or material bans, as less packaging or the switch from one material to another can ultimately lead to broken products and more solid waste. So we just want to make sure that when developing the needs assessment, that's taken into account all the different kinds of products that have packaging. Additionally, we agree that the transition to refillable or movable packaging can be an important component to increase resilience in recycling and solid waste management, but we don't agree that those requirements can be applied to all products at the same time, again, in a one-size-fits-all approach. Our products, electronics, would probably have difficulty trying to figure out how that would apply to us. We're a small contributor to the packaging waste overall, and so we just would support packaging reduction strategies tailored to our industry. And our member companies, we've been committed to achieving more sustainable packaging design by reducing our packaging, switching to more sustainable materials, and increasing recycled rates. So that's all that I have today. I've submitted additional written testimony, and encourage you guys to reach out to me if you have additional questions. So thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity, and that's it.
Thank you. And then we have Retail Merchants of Hawaii present.
Aloha and good morning. We support the intent of this bill, but we also understand that it has to be a balanced study of waste management. We should flesh out all the details needed to implement the programs and projects. The focus should take consideration the limitations Hawaii has as an island state, as well as the resources needed, the cost of implementing these projects and programs, and who is expected to pay for them. We must keep in mind that Hawaii does not have many recycling resources available, and unlike the mainland, we can't truck it out to a tri-state area. We have to ship everything in or out of Hawaii. And we understand that everybody wants the burden to be on the producers because they feel then that they're not paying for it, somebody else is. But anytime you touch retail, the prices are going to go up because the producers are going to pass it on to the retailers are going to pass it on to the customers, making prices more expensive and keeping Hawaii a very expensive place to live. Thank you.
Next up, we have just written testimony with comments from the Consumer Brands Association, and then we have additional individual testimony, 14 individuals in support and 3 in opposition. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, any questions? Let's see. I guess for Hika or Jolie or Ted, but yeah, Jolie. I guess just for everyone listening and our committee members, if you can just explain, a little bit more about the term EPR, extended producer responsibility, and how that creates a feedback loop that leads to better product design and less waste.
Yeah.
And just also for clarity for everyone, this is what we're working towards, but the current bill that is being considered is just to do a needs assessment, not to actually implement a program or anything prescriptive.
Right, and the needs assessment is necessary because we need to know baseline data in order to set certain source reduction goals or reduction towards some of these plastic wastes and packaging waste that we're seeing, which we lack significant data. And while the Department of Health is currently working on that, there's other things as well within the waste stream beyond just what it's comprised of that we're looking towards. And so extended producer responsibility shifts the burden of the entire life cycle of a product. So not just the consumer stage, but the post-consumer stage. So that incentivizes them to not only reduce their packaging waste, but to also provide reuse because they don't want to be financially responsible for that. So they're going to do everything that they can to reduce their own costs. And you mentioned raising prices for consumers. There's data out there as well that proves that there's a very, very minimal amount added to the price for consumers as well. So,
and to be clear, when producers don't share in the responsibility and don't have the incentive to reduce packaging and produce better products and lower costs for everyone, when we have no producer responsibility, who's shouldering the burden, financially, of all of that waste disposal?
right. I think it's a rising tide lifts all boats sort of thing. And I think producers that industry is the most capable, the most pervasive, the most powerful enough financially as well to carry that burden.
The question was, who's paying for it now?
Right. Yeah, taxpayers, we are.
Taxpayers are paying for it. Yeah, thank you. Any questions, Rep. Ward?
Sure, may I follow up, Madam? Is there a model, a template of either the Europeans and what they have done or what we're doing? Or are we starting from scratch? Or is this something that we can learn a lot from in what they have said about what is taking place?
So Europeans, I believe it started in France. They have a specific model, but there are also existing models. I think 4 different states currently have EPR programs implemented. So usually they'll create a PRO, which is a producer responsibility organization that will be comprised of different stakeholders, members of the group. So there are existing models that will be easy to
And
follow.
do they live happily ever after? What happens? Give me the upside of all this.
So I think with the system of a PRO, having all stakeholders included is a necessary means. We need to be working with, the people who are responsible for their packaging waste because they have the most, they have the best ability in order to change. So kind of a broader collaboration is something that we're looking towards. So that sort of structure is something that we'll probably hope to implement here. I think Maine has one of the best EPR structures that is easy for us to follow. And
Could you name the worst and the best packaging models that we have in the U.S.?
in the US, I think that Maine has one of the most.
No, I mean, which package? I mean, the TV
Board, that's
packages?
a very subjective question.
No, I mean,
worst and best.
we're talking
There-
about
the-
packaging. Give me an example of a package. That's all I want is a practical
Okay, that
application.
didn't sound like your question, but go ahead.
So a certain material?
Yes, exactly. When we buy it or we get it from FedEx or Amazon, et cetera. Give
Amazon,
me a
yeah.
package that doesn't fit the model, the worst ones and then the best ones. There's
I
got to
s-
be good packaging and bad packaging. That's my point.
Okay, I'd say just based on its extensive reach, Amazon.
Sorry?
Amazon,
They have bad packaging or good packaging?
bad, just in terms of,
How much?
yeah.
Okay, Rep. Ward, this
Pass.
is a
And what
little
would this
far
bill do?
afield,
But what
and you
would
might
the-
be asking the wrong person who doesn't.
Oh,
You're
oh,
allowed
sorry.
to say
Okay, I
you can
probably
get back
am
to him
right.
later.
Who's the
so-
right person, Madam Chair?
I don't know. Maybe ask
Does
Department of
anybody know
Health.
the answer to good packaging and bad packaging? Because I want to know what this thing actually does. Nobody knows. There's the man who knows waste management well.
Thank you, Representative Ward, for the question.
Thank you, Jolie. Good job.
I think the answer is right now, packaging is generally not very good. And Amazon is a good example of how much we get in the mail. FedEx, as you said, those packages are sometimes getting better, but hugely wasteful. All the packing chips and balloons in the bag and all that stuff has to go to the landfill. We can do better than that. And there are places, I think in Haleiwa, Jack Johnson has a Kakua Foundation where you bring in your bottle and refill things instead of taking a new package every time. Those are kind of I would say, the poles of wasteful packaging that we have now with a system we can move to, and that's on a small scale, but we can do a whole lot of things where we would reuse instead of repackaging every time.
What is the gold standard of packaging then? The European or
Yeah,
Maine
I
or
think
whoever?
Europe is well ahead of us.
What do they do that we don't do?
Reuse instead of toss. That is, we package everything and then throw it in the trash. If you have packaging where you can reuse it and come back in with your package and refill it, then you are not wasting packaging.
Well, we're kind of edging up in that direction already, aren't we?
We're moving in that direction, yes, but we have such a long way to go. I mean, look at what's going into our landfills now.
And what will this bill do?
This bill would start down the path of fixing that problem. It would find out what the counties need in order to have better infrastructure to collect and also to reuse materials. There's various groups on the local level in the Big Island, I know, that are working on refilling packaging instead of having new stuff come in. So this bill will get all the parties together, figure out what we need to do on the county levels with the Department of Health doing the statewide needs assessment. And then, in a couple of years, we can start thinking about a bill that will develop a full EPR system and a more circular waste.
It's a needs assessment, but can we, the bill is available to read
But,
if you haven't read it yet.
well, no, I have, Madam Chair, but it's in vague terms, and I want to know the cost implication from the chamber that spoke earlier. What's the actual bottom line dollar-wise? May I ask Pam? Or, oh, sorry, Tina, sorry, I missed you from the Maui. How much is this
I
gonna
didn't change
cost?
jobs. I'm still with the retail merchants
Sorry,
only.
sorry,
Just
you were-
kidding. It depends on the different producers and things because packaging is very different for every product that comes out. And I'm not really sure. Everyone's cost is a little different too. So I don't know that answer.
Every cost has a benefit, every benefit has a cost. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair,
Thank
for your
you.
tolerance. And members?
Any further questions? If not, we'll move on to the next bill on the agenda, House Bill 2740. This establishes a Hawaii Zero Waste Initiative, so just doing some goal setting about reducing waste, starting with reuse, refill, repurpose, and then recycle. It's source reduction, of course, at the top of the list. First up to testify, we have State of Hawaii Climate Mitigation and Adaptation Commission in support, Department of Health offering comments. And we do have everyone's written testimony, of course.
Good morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, members of the committee. Lane Otsu again, representing Department of Health, and we stand on our submitted written.
Thank you. We have the County of Kauai in support, Planet Branding in support, Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition, Ted Bolin.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. This bill is a broader initiative that would have similar goals to the needs assessment, but be working on a higher altitude level. That is, we have a goal set in this to move to zero waste. This would enable us to have some green jobs, I think, in the process. It would get us more to the more circular economy that I spoke of in regard to the last bill. I think it's a good idea, and I would urge the department to pass it, the committee to pass it. I would say that in terms of the costs, in regard to the previous question, yes, there are costs of producers, but there's more costs on the county taxpayers right now for the waste handling. So this is an opportunity to save costs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then we have Ameripen on
Yeah. Thanks
Zoom.
again, Chair Lowen and members of the committee. Ameripan, we're opposed to moving this bill forward, but that's because we feel that House Bill 1688, your needs assessment bill, is the one that should be moving forward and is the best basis for getting the right data and working with the producers instead of giving a lot of control to the Department of Health. But we also stand on our written testimony. Thanks again.
Thank you. And Consumer Technology Association on Zoom.
Hi, yes, back again, representing the consumer electronics industry. I agree with Lauren. We are opposed to this bill. We would like to see 1688 be the vehicle that moves forward. That one with amendments and other stakeholder input. We just believe that this bill is too vague and provides too much authority to the Department of Health. Again, you mentioned a few minutes ago source reduction, and I just want to reemphasize my point that source reduction cannot be a broad one-size-fits-all rate to every single product, because our products, TVs, phones, laptops, are incredibly expensive and incredibly breakable. So we do not want your TVs being broken when they get to Hawaii. And if we continue to source reduce, we will instead have more broken products, the loss of resources, and more solid waste. So sometimes by reducing the packaging material, you get more solid waste because you get more broken products. So just remember that point. That's very important to our industry. And we have written testimony. We stand on our written testimony. Thank you guys for the opportunity today, and are welcome to or open to continuing the conversation on these bills. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the Wine Institute on Zoom. Oh, present.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Jenna Matilla on behalf of the Wine Institute, and we are going to stand on our testimony. Thank you for the opportunity to share our concerns this morning.
Thank you. And then we have retail merchants.
Aloha and good morning again. I'm Tini Yamaki with Retail Merchants of Hawaii. We are opposed to this bill, but I want to make it clear that we are supportive of recycling initiatives that are reasonable. And like the previous testifiers too, we feel that the study is the best way to go to find out exactly what it is Hawaii can do and what the costs are to implement these programs. Thank you.
And that's everyone that we had signed up in advance to testify. Is there anyone else here who wishes to testify on this measure? If not, members, questions? Rep. Word.
Thank you, Chair. Is anyone here from the Flexible Packaging Association?
They are not.
They're not here. The Department of Health then, because, where's the Department of Health? In their testimony, they say you are going to be charged with sending zero waste to the landfill or incineration. Are you going to shut down Frank Fosse's waste-to-energy plant? Question mark?
No, well, our testimony was commenting on, we understand this bill as resetting the goals or the priorities for our program. And we point out that we feel that much of the bill contents are already addressed in our existing statute, where source reduction is prioritized as the first option in waste management. So it's not specifically saying, not ruling out landfilling or incineration.
So it says you will have the power to shut down the waste-to-energy or the incineration.
No,
I mean, this is
no,
what
it
the test,
doesn't, no.
because the person is not here, I'm asking you, because they say, under the Hawaii Zero Waste Initiative, the Department of Health will be charged with sending zero waste to the landfill or to incineration.
As a goal, yeah.
Does it say when? Or do you have any idea when that would be? Because that's a pretty double-digit amount of electricity that Oahu generates through that particular system. So this will affect something that'll affect something that, in Hawaii Kai, we have brownouts and blackouts already. No
right.
comments. Okay, thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
well,
you.
waste minimization, right? I mean, it's along with, EPR, it's prioritizing EPR to minimize waste, while still recognizing that, at the time being, we do need landfills, we do need H-power.
So you have no idea the time frame that this is referencing to, or that you're referencing to, if this
No,
passes?
I don't think that can be definitively set, right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda, if no further questions, is House Bill 1897, and this requires a phase-out of single-use plastics and complementary personal care products provided in hotels. First up to testify, we have Department of Health with comments.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Lene Ichinotsuba with the Department of Health Solid and Hazardous Waste Branch. We stand on our written testimony providing comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Hawaii State Climate Commission in support. We have Hawaii Tourism Authority offering comments, Planet Branding, Hawaii Tourism Authority in person? Not here. Planet Branding in support. Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition in support. Plastic Industry Association in opposition. Hawaii Environmental Change Agent Solid Waste Task Force in support. Maui Hotel and Lodging Association in support. Hawaii Lodging and Tourism Association in support, and an additional 10 individuals in support and 2 in opposition. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members' questions? All right, not a lot of in-person testimony or people to ask questions of, so we'll go ahead and move on. We've also heard this bill twice, 2 past years, I think, so maybe third time's the charm. We'll move on to House Bill 1896. This is another bill that we also considered last year, so this is relating to environmental protection, and this would phase out, I believe, by 2027, the inclusion of PFAS in any food serviceware or personal care products imported into the state with certain exemptions. And first up to testify, we have Department of Health in support.
Good morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, and representatives of the committee. My name is Michael Burke. I'm with the Hawaii State Department of Health Food and Drug Branch. We submitted written testimony in support and stand on our written testimony, and I'm available for questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. And Board of Water Supply in support.
Kathy Mitchell with the Board of Water Supply. We stand on our written testimony in support.
Thank you. Planet Branding in support. We have Hawaii Restaurant Association on Zoom in support.
Hi, good morning, Chair Lowen and members of the committee. The Hawaii Restaurant Association support this bill. Just to give you an update, when I talked with the National Restaurant Association regarding eliminating PFAS out of our foodware chain, I think the last report I got is that the majority of the suppliers have already phased out of PFAS, and this additional 2 years definitely will make sure that we'll be 100% in compliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Then we have Sierra Club of Hawaii in support, Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition in support, Hawaii Food Plus Policy in support, HICA Solid Waste Task Force on Zoom? No? Jennifer Navarra?
Here, yeah, thank you. Thank you for members of committee. We stand in support of this measure. For those of you that aren't familiar, PFAS chemicals, like they're in the news now, a lot of people know of them. You know, they're also referred to as forever chemicals. They don't break down well or don't break down in the environment. And they do have negative health implications. They're used on a whole myriad of products. They help to, waterproof things, to help things from, absorbing water. And so they're widely used. My concern, I guess, with this legislation is, how is it enforceable? Like, how do we really know that really manufacturers are complying with this? It's not like, banning a styrofoam container that you could see, it's not something that you can necessarily see. And so I'm just curious if there's ways to improve the enforceability, perhaps requiring some type of registration of vendors that are selling these products with the Department of Health to ensure that the products that are being sold don't actually contain these chemicals. I know that has something that's been done in legislation for foodware out of Alameda County. There's also another just concern of a lot of times what happens with these chemicals that are found to have negative human health impacts is they just substitute them with something else that also might be equally as harmful. And so how do we ensure that that's not happening in this situation? And I'm not a chemist or pretend to know a whole lot about chemistry, but is there a way that we can avoid regrettable substitutes of chemicals that have equally as harmful impacts on human health and the environment? Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have some additional written testimony submitted. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? Oh, did I miss you? Sorry about that.
Sorry about it.
Okay, it didn't say to testify, but go ahead.
We are opposed to this bill. We think that there should be a study done. I think there's a lot of assumption of what has PFAS, what PFAS is, how much is in these products, what the FDA deems, safe. So I think we should do a study to find out exactly which products and how many products this would affect before we start banning everything and finding out that Hawaii has very little choices. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? All right, if not, I have some questions for Department of Health. Just on that question of safety, I guess, because it is a little frustrating. I mean, the EPA has come out with the, minimum levels you can have in drinking water, and it's a pretty low tolerance. Like, they're essentially saying no levels are safe. We should really get this down to zero. But at the same time, there isn't, there's still a lack of action at the federal level to phase out the use of these chemicals in products, so they're still being allowed to enter the waste stream or enter the environment. But I don't think that at this point, given the actions of the EPA, that I would conclude that is an implicit assumption that means there's a safe. It seems like there's pretty much action in the direction of saying these are unsafe in any quantity.
I think that, sort of longitudinally, right, if you're taking a look at this over a course of time, the direction is fairly clear that, the studies are being conducted, and as data comes in, we're learning more and more that this can potentially be, have a negative impact on your health. And so I think that, the federal government as a bureaucracy, just like we are. And so it might take a little bit longer for like the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, to come out with their own, formulations or requirements or prohibitions on PFAS in cosmetics and drugs and food packaging products. And so it based on just how we're seeing the direction, it's likely more just a matter of time.
All right, thank you. Any further questions, members? All right, if not, we'll move on. Next bill on the agenda. Let's see, where were we? Relating to plastic pollution, House Bill 1585. So this is a prohibition on state agencies from using polystyrene food service containers. And first up to testify is, I lost my place, 1585, Department of Health.
Department stands on our written testimony providing comment. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have a bunch of other testimonies submitted, but the Department of Health is the only one signed up to testify in person. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members' questions. Quick question, I think, Department of Health. I think your testimony, indicated that given the action at each county level, it was a de facto ban on styrofoam. But actually, just to clarify, I think that mainly applies to food service containers. So if you had a state agency purchasing, say, styrofoam cups, which you can still buy in Hawaii, for use in their department at their coffee machine or something like that, that wouldn't be outlawed by any of the county laws, I don't think. Or if you had, say, the Department of Education using polystyrene containers to serve food at school lunches.
We would have, I thought it was, when we read the ordinances, and this is something we can go back to the counties to confirm, but I thought it was also food providers. So on the cafeteria level, I would think it would apply, but that's something that we can double check with
Can you
other
let us
counties.
know
Okay.
if that question is actually already addressed in county ordinances? And I guess if it's different, if it's the same in each county?
Okay.
Just curious how it applies to state agencies. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Any other questions, members?
Chair,
Rep.
if I may
Ford?
follow up with the Department of Health. This would seem generally applicable to the food service DOE cafeterias. Do you know if they have any of these things mentioned in the bill that would be prohibited with this bill?
I think
And they
that
serve a
was
lot of
very
food, right?
similar
Some of
question.
it's takeout?
So I believe the counties addressed food providers, so I would suspect that this, the county ordinances would apply to the cafeterias, but that's something I will go back to the counties and confirm.
But this bill applies to state agencies though, doesn't it? Not county.
Yes, but the county already have ordinances prohibiting the distribution or for food vendors or food providers to not use polystyrene.
So this bill is not necessary then, if that's the case?
That's what we believe, but based on the questions specific to DOE, we will double check with the counties to make sure that the county ordinances do apply to all food providers.
Very well. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next up, we have House Bill 2562 relating to plastic bottles. So this, relating to plastic water bottles, so this would phase out the sale of plastic water bottles, of bottles water, basically. Not reusable, not intended to apply to reusable plastic bottles. First up to testify, we have Hawaii Tourism Authority with comments. We have Hawaii Food Industry Association on Zoom. Not present. International Bottled Water Association on Zoom.
Yes, good morning. Hi, I'm James Toner, Director of Government Relations for the International Bottled Water Association. I'm here today speaking in opposition to House Bill 2562. We've submitted written comments and would kindly request the committee to review these prior to taking any further consideration, but there are some facts that I want to highlight with regard to plastic water bottles and plastic in general. Plastic water bottles have the lowest environmental footprint of any other beverage packaging, and this includes other beverages that use PET plastic. The production of these bottles also uses less energy than any other beverage packaging. As an industry, we don't consider these bottles to be single use. They're 100% recyclable. We encourage consumers to support the circularity of this product, whether that be via the state's bottle deposit system or curbside recycling programs. IBWO members are some of the largest users of recycled plastic, and to continue that effort, viable feedstock is necessary to ensure production of new bottles with recycled content. Plastic water bottle containers use less water to make a bottle than any other beverage container, and this includes the water that is in the bottle. As an association, we are driven to support the role of healthy hydration, no matter the source. And since 1998, the growth of the bottled water sales can be directly attributed to consumers' desire for healthy beverage options. And while the bill would allow for bottled water to be available in other packaging materials, consumers prefer their water in plastic bottles. 70% prefer plastic over glass, metal, or cartons. Finally, PET plastic is the most recycled and most valued recycled plastic material. The worldwide demand for rPET, or recycled PET, is growing at an exponential rate. Eliminating products that are made from PET will hinder the manufacturer's ability to continue to utilize rPET and would also have an impact on the state's bottle deposit program. Water bottles have a strong presence in Hawaii, employing nearly 3,000 people in direct supplier and ancillary jobs and over $620 million in
Can you
state
please
economic
summarize,
activity.
can you please summarize your testimony?
Yeah, that's
We do
all.
have-
I'm
We do
done.
have your written
I appreciate
testimony.
I appreciate the opportunity to provide this comment.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have Hawaii Environmental Change Agent Solid Waste Task Force, Jennifer Navarra on Zoom.
Hi, thank you, Chair, and thank you for the rest of the committee. I just want to provide some comments on this legislation. I think every last 3 years at least, this measure has come up, and I don't think we're there yet to just completely ban plastic water bottles. I think what would happen if we pass this legislation is we'd still have single-use water that's being sold, and it'd probably be in aluminum cans. And as the previous testifier pointed out, some life cycle analysis show that aluminum cans have like the worst carbon footprint. The bauxite must be mined. It has, it requires a lot of energy. And yes, it is a recyclable material. It's infinitely recyclable, but we don't really achieve high recycling rates. I think the best in the US is around 50%. And as we see like all the time, our beverage containers where we have a deposit system in the state are still discarded pretty regularly. And so it's not really fully addressing the problem. What I would love to see is legislation that gets us to the point where it's more convenient for us to refill our own containers. So I'd love to see a bill that mandates businesses and state parks and state buildings and schools and everywhere we go that we have the ability to refill our own containers with filtered water. And then even when we're farther down the road in terms of infrastructure where we have reuse systems in place, that there's a water bottle that you could borrow and it'd be returned. And so I think that's what we would need system level wise to actually have a sustainable solution of how we get our water. And so those are my thoughts. I also just want to highlight that, aluminum is still lined with a plastic liner that has some of the negative, the BPA and some of the chemicals. And so we also are not really fully addressing the human health problem if we were to switch to a different type of container. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have American Beverage Association on Zoom. Oh, hi. Sorry.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Mihoko Ito on behalf of the American Beverage Association, which is a trade association representing the non-alcoholic beverage industry in Hawaii and nationwide. We do oppose this measure largely for the same reasons as previous testifiers did point out. PET beverage bottles are carefully designed to be 100% recyclable, even the caps. And unlike other types of plastic, PET is not single-use, but is made to be remade again and again into new bottles or even in clothing, carpet, shoes, and other products. We do think that the existing system, the state's High Five program, the curbside recycling program, and drop-off recycling programs on all islands does provide a system to readily collect and recycle these products. And finally, we would note in this bill that there is an exemption to allow for plastic bottled water during emergencies, but this type of ban could potentially result in it taking days or weeks to ship bottles of water from the mainland when our community has immediate needs. The beverage industry has really been an integral part of local communities across the state and has immediately stepped up to support the community needs after disasters like Red Hill or Lahaina. And so for those reasons, we do oppose this measure. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have retail merchants.
Aloha. We are in opposition to this bill, as like the previous testifiers have mentioned. And I want to point out, too, that for a lot of locally owned small mom and pop stores, the effective date for them, they're going to have to sell their products at a real reduction and lose money, or they're going to have to dump their products or use it themselves, which means there's still no income on that coming on. For the emergency part of it, retailers are not going to hold on to products that they cannot sell in their warehouses. And if you haven't seen on the majority of the beverages, there's an expiration date on there. So you don't want to bring in a lot of product and just have to dump it. Maui was an exception when everybody was sending in a lot of bottled water. Our office got called, and we also coordinated with a lot of our members to send in resources for that, but we can't always depend on that. And like the previous testifier said, it's very hard to bring in bottled water and expensive, especially if you have to fly it in. On the other states that may have bottled bans or counties, if there is a disaster, they can truck it in from a tri-county area or tri-state area. So they're very lucky that way. But being an island state, we don't have that luxury. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have additional written testimony, but no one else signed up to testify in person. Is there anyone else here to testify in person? Oh, Department of Health, sorry. Go ahead.
Just checking if you received our written testimony.
I think we do have your written testimony. I just skipped over you. I apologize.
Okay, well, we stand on our written testimony offering comments.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, if no one else here to testify on this measure, members, are there any questions? Rep. Ward.
I have a question to the gentleman who was on the line, who was told to summarize. Are you still there, sir?
Yes,
I forgot
am.
your name. Okay, question. You said that most of the water bottles are recycled. Do you have a percentage of the amount that they are actually recycled?
I think, I don't know what it is specifically for Hawaii, but I'm happy to get you that information. Given that the state has a bottle deposit program, it is going to be higher than most of the national average numbers that are out there for, and also know that within those numbers that specifically plastic water bottles are the most recycled beverage container within not only deposit programs, but curbside recycling.
Yeah, and that's the figure I'm trying to get. Do you have a national average of that, what you just said?
I think the national average right now is around 38%. But states that have bottle deposit programs can range anywhere from about 50% to as high as almost 90%.
And what is the recycling percentage of the bottles that are allowable under this bill? That is, it looks like a quart bottle looks like it's legal in this, if I read the bill correctly.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's very rare that they break them recycling numbers down by container size. It's actually even very hard to get it for individual products, meaning water versus soda versus other products. So I do not know what it would be if it was only to be with the higher capacity bottles.
Let me rephrase the question. How many small 12 ounces, which is the normal one that you get at Costco, are plastic equivalent in volume, size of plastic, in the quart bottles that are allowable by this bill?
Again, I'd have to find out what that is. I do not know an answer for those numbers. I do know that I can state that the most frequent use of the single or the single use or plastic water bottles is the one that you see most of the time, 16.9 ounces. but I don't know how that rate compares to other sizes overall and what it is.
Thank you very much. Does anyone here know that equivalent of the small bottles in the big bottles that are allowable here? Because if we're going to allow the big ones, that means we're putting maybe aside 4 or 5 small ones
All right,
in place of the
reported.
big ones.
Speech, not a
To me, it's not
question.
necessarily logical. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Quick question from you too for the gentleman online. So what was the number you said again for the % of bottles recycled?
Overall, US-wide,
Yes.
I think the recycling rate for beverage containers is hovering around 38% the last time I checked.
Okay, with 38%. And do you measure that based on collections, like what people turn in to be recycled? Or do you measure that based on verifying those were actually recycled into new products?
I don't know the answer to that because we don't do it. It's done by the Beverage Marketing Corporation, who produces an annual report, which I'm happy to provide the committee with, and I'm sure the American Beverage Association as well has information on that they can provide in terms of how they break that down.
Okay, because even with, I mean, those two numbers could be considerably different between what people turn in to be recycled and what actually gets recycled. Would you agree with that statement?
I think that they're looking, obviously, I think it's the numbers that are, I don't know, but I would assume it's actually what's being recycled. I think that there obviously is a lot of concern from consumers today that what they put, whether it's in a bottle deposit system or within or curbside, that it's actually being recycled. But we can pretty much assuredly say that, you know, a large majority of that is definitely being recycled. And I think they basically look at the numbers of sales versus what is coming back through a system.
Okay, thank you. Department of Health, quick question. For the deposit beverage container program, what is the recycling? What do you estimate the recycling rate? Or maybe for James or Lane?
For DVC overall, it's about 50, high 50s, about 60%.
And then what
It's under 60%.
happens with those actual containers? I mean, that's the % that get redeemed. 50.
Well, so, excuse me, what
Sorry,
is the
Rep, we
question?
want to clarify if you said
15 or
50 or 15?
58, nearly 60, 58, nearly 60, nearly 60%.
Nearly 60, okay.
Yes.
What was I asking? Oh, but that's measuring how many containers get turned in and redeemed.
Redeemed and sent off for recycling.
Okay.
Yeah.
What counts, so that is sent off for recycling to the mainland?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, members? All right, if not, we'll move on. Next on the agenda, House Bill 2665 relating to the state plan. This is, again, a bill we've seen several years in a row. Hopefully, we can move it this year, which establishes green infrastructure objectives within the state plan. And first up to testify, we have DLNR in support.
Aloha, Chair and Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Afshin Siddiqui, wildlife biologist with Department of Land and Natural Resources, and we stand on our testimony in support. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We have Office of Planning and Sustainable Development.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Daniel Bass, Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. We stand on our testimony in support. Mahalo.
Thank you. We have additional written testimony submitted, I think almost all in support and one individual in opposition. But is there anyone else here to testify in person on this measure or on Zoom? If not, members, any questions? All right, if not, we'll move on to the next bill on the agenda relating to light pollution, House Bill 2027. This establishes a dark night skies protection advisory committee to assist DLNR in developing a statewide dark night skies protection strategy. First up to testify is DLNR again.
Aloha, Afshin Siddiqui with Department of Land and Natural Resources, where we stand on our testimony in support.
Thank you. And then we have DBET on Zoom. Not present. Oh, hello. Come forward.
Good morning. Sandy Chihara Abe from the Hawaii Film Office. DBET stands on its written testimony.
Thank you. And we have additional testimony from UH, Hawaii Thousand Friends, Quinokohala Chamber, Hawaii Island Chamber, Design Light Consortium, Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition, Mauna Kea Observatory's Outdoor Circle, all in support, and a number of individuals all in support. Hang on, I missed one person who signed up to testify in person. Is someone here from the Feather and Fur Animal Hospital? In person? Okay, they're also in support. So that is all our testimony. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, any questions? Rep. Ward.
DBET, please. This is a recycling of what otherwise, I think it was a working group or a task force or something that said, and I remember the phrase that darkness is a natural resource because of what we have on Mauna Kea. What will this new entity advisory group do that the other one didn't do, and why was the other one canceled and not effective in doing what it's doing, which seems to be redundant?
I'm not really familiar with the other advisory group. We were testifying from the point that we do film permits, and occasionally our film permits are at night, so we work with the productions to limit their impact on the birds or any other natural resources. So I'm sorry, but I'm not familiar with the other.
So nothing to do with Mauna Kea then, obviously?
No.
And you have no idea what that one did?
No, but I will
or why
ask.
It got defunct?
I will ask and see if anyone at DBET has the information.
Yeah, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, actually.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And, all right, moving on to House Bill 1890 relating to noise pollution. So this would phase out the sale of new combustion-powered, engine-powered mopeds to reduce noise pollution. First up to testify, we have the Attorney General offering comments.
Good morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, and members of the committee. Margie Lau, Deputy Attorney General. Our department provided written comments, which include the concern that this prohibition on the sale of combustion engine-powered mopeds may be subject to challenge as a federally preempted standard under the Federal Clean Air Act. I am available for your questions. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. And next we have Hawaii State Energy Office offering comments.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. John Chin, on behalf of the State Energy Office, we stand on our written comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have Mopeds Direct, Joe Shimkonis, in person.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and Chair people. I oppose this measure. There's other ways we can control the noise pollution by safety checks. We could offer called WMIs, World Manufacturer Identifier. We could deplete all the two-stroke mopeds that actually do pollute and make a lot of noise that you're hearing. When actually there's other vehicles that make more noise, buses, modified cars, Harley Davidsons. I've submitted that in my testimony.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next, we have Paul Chinchilla in person. Then we have Moped Doctors in person.
Morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, all members of the committee. My name is Manabo Sato. I represent Moped Doctors. I'm the GM co-founder. We're a local business that's been in existence since 2010. I'm also a moped safety inspector, station number 1926. We oppose HB 1890, elimination of new gas moped sales. The fact is that e-mopeds are not complete replacements on gas-powered mopeds and should be considered as an addition to and not a replacement for gas mopeds, as they are slightly quieter. However, they do cost more, much more, 3 to 5 times as much. They take a recharge time, a refuel time of 2 hours versus 2 minutes. and they run down as fast as 1 hour. There's other concerns that gas mopeds don't have that e-mopeds do, like possible battery fires, and then there's the landfill issue that can happen in the future. I helped start the moped sound inspection program in 2016 in conjunction with cooperation with the Hawaii DOT, John Lovestead at the time, Department of Highway Safety at the time, and we helped establish the sound inspection part of the moped safety inspection program. And that program has been largely successful over the years and has actually helped reduce the overall noise of noisy mopeds, which are often damaged or modified type of mopeds and which wouldn't pass safety inspection standards for mopeds in Hawaii anyway. And another side note is I was really shocked to speak with safety inspectors of other vehicles in our industry, including cars and motorcycles, and I found out that there is no sound inspection standard available for cars and motorcycles, of which there are much more than there are mopeds. There are 25,000 registered mopeds in Hawaii. There are 1.2 million registered cars, which most are gas-powered, and there's 40,000, up to 40,000 motorcycles, most of which are gas-powered. So I would recommend that noise standards be added to car and motorcycle inspection programs in order to make it fair, equal, and reasonable, rather than just for mopeds, so that way there could be a greater overall reduction of noise from traffic and motor vehicles. And also, I would recommend that I did before a sustained law enforcement program against loud vehicles of every type, not just mopeds, cars, motorcycles, every type of motor vehicle that makes loud noises should be subject to a sustained program. The elimination of gas-powered mopeds, however, will mean the death of the best overall compromise of economy, ecological support, convenience, value, and accessibility in the terms of affordable personal transportation for most people in Hawaii who use them. And there is no close second place at this time, and that includes electric mopeds. It will mean death to also scores of local businesses, some of which have been around since as much as 40 years, like my colleague Joe over there, who's been around since the 80s. It'll mean the death to millions of dollars of taxable income in Hawaii. It would mean the death of hundreds of jobs. So we would please respectfully like to pose our opposition, and please don't pass this bill if possible, and please read my further written testimony for more details, and I'm available for any comments or questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then we have the Moped Garage in person, Joel Pena.
Hello, thanks. Thank you. Stand behind my written testimony and here for any questions and strong opposition to this. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have quite a lot of additional testimony submitted. I think it looks like 89 individuals in opposition, 5 in support, and 1 with comments. Was there anyone else here to testify on this measure? First, we'll hear from retail merchants, and then you can come up. Thank you.
Aloha, I apologize if you have not received our testimony, and we can resend it in. We are opposed to this measure. We think it's a little too early to implement something like this. The technology is just not there yet. Like the previous gentleman mentioned, that charges last only about an hour, and for those on the neighbor islands, that might be a hindrance. We know there's a lot of moped use on the neighbor islands as well, and also for delivery people. We also want to say, point out that we found out that there is a weight limit to these rides and can be prone to damage if you're a little bit overweight, and could also cause a casualty. These mopeds probably have about a 2-year average lifespan of 300 to 500 full charges cycles, or approximately at the most 3 years they'll last. With that, they're going to have to go into some landfill or something, or have the batteries changed out. And Hawaii doesn't really have any recycling for lithium batteries. And like previously mentioned, they're not like your Duracell batteries that may just leak out something and you just put it in a can. These things do combust and cause fires and explosions. The implementation date for this is a little too hard for a lot of our locally owned businesses that don't have a mainland sister or counterpart that they can ship off their mopeds to. They're going to take a loss at a lot of these things, or they're just going to end up in the trash. So we hope that you hold this bill for now. Thank you.
Thank you. And then, Sir, please come up. And then following that, there's another gentleman on Zoom that we'll hear from afterwards.
Hi, my name is Mike Rosenman. So I'm an electronic engineer by trade, and I open many of these economical electric mopeds, and the wiring inside is very, very unsafe because they're so cheap. A decent moped starts with $3,000 to $4,000. That will have a different type of quality. In fact, Chinese use the same connector for different technologies. So you can put a charger, and lead-acid charger, into a lithium-ion battery, and that will explode. There is no doubt. I've seen it. A few houses got burned here in the island. In New York, plenty of them, which they already got banned many times. In Paris, I think they're also banning some scooters because of different problems of safety. So the explosion risk is pretty high. And even though the vendors, they know they use EPA-approved and DOT-approved components, but there is no requirements for them to have their own custom connectors. So the cheaper vehicles, they all have the same connector. And that's when we run out, personally, seen that happen. So, which of course became a lawsuit. The range of these mopeds are the range of the battery is very low. It's not like you said on your bill that the technology is already there and that just because they're exchangeable, that seems to solve the problem. That's not the problem. Moped batteries are much heavier, way heavier, and you cannot be carrying 3 moped batteries for you to go around for a very long time. So shipping these batteries and these mopeds is an extra expense that the payer is going to have to be burdened with. They're not cheap to send lithium-ion batteries, which now is pretty much the most known technology. That person said before, they only go for 500 cycles until they start reaching 80% of the charge, and then they start going down from there. So the life cycle is way, way lower than a gas moped that can be recharged anytime with gas. So we had this issue every year, and every year we talk about the same things. We had 2-stroke mopeds before, and we have 4-stroke mopeds because of they have less pollution. So these two-stroke mopeds, we do not safety check them. We do not allow them on the street. It's just people do it illegally. So enforcement of the law is what has to happen. New laws, it doesn't make any sense. You have to enforce the one you already have, because the 4-stroke mopeds do not pollute even close to what a 2-stroke moped does. So anyway, another proposal, like we have safety stations, they can actually figure out when a 2-stroke moped comes in, if it doesn't meet the noise, or we can ban the 2-stroke mopeds altogether. The one they got banned many years ago, but they're still being used. So anyway, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. And then finally, there's an additional person on Zoom, Corbin Gerard. Go ahead, please.
Hello, my name's Corbin Gerard. I'm a student of psychology and working on my doctorate. I've lived in Hawaii a long time, and I've had a lot of mopeds. Going through doctoral school is expensive. I need my moped, and I want to actually acknowledge the other testimonies that other people have presented. There are some things, out of 6 billion people on the planet, 1% have mopeds. That's 120,000, I think, or 120 million. And the ecological effect of mopeds. First off, 2 strokes, they could go. 4 strokes are regulated.
Sir, if you can keep your comments to the contents of the bill, which relate to noise pollution and not to testimony that we've received.
4 strokes are highly regulated. They come with stock mufflers that, meet DOT regulations. Modified mopeds have other things. And the safety inspection rules should include, restrictions on modifications. In California, they don't have a safety check, they have a smog check, which only checks for emissions, but doesn't check for the safety of the vehicle. Hawaii can be a leader in making a new standard throughout the country because they don't even check mopeds in California. But, cars and mopeds are all checked here to be safe, but they should also be, friendly to the environment, as far as modifications of motorcycles, mopeds, and cars. We should all have the same restrictions and certifications. Dr. Moped, definitely, he's my guy, and he, has saved my vehicle and my life, probably because he said, well, I can't give you one, unless you fix these things. And, that's part of the process. We need more restrictions on the existing laws that we have, regarding safety of all motor vehicles on the road. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? Please come forward.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity, Chair Lowen and Vice Chair Cochran. My name is Mark McCoy. The issue here is noise. I don't think this bill was founded on correct premise. We are not there yet. The technology is dangerous in two-wheeled vehicles. Two-wheeled electric vehicles are not where Tesla is. I know we see Teslas everywhere, but in 2023, in New York, there are 250 two-wheel electric vehicle fires that resulted in over 180 serious injuries and 18 deaths. We're inviting that into Hawaii. If we replace the cheap four-stroke gas-powered vehicles here, we will replace them with substandard, non-UL listed electric fire hazards. There will be fires. There will be deaths. I don't think it's right. I think we need to really research what we're doing, changing the safety for Hawaii's people. When a four-stroke moped has a problem, it quits. That's it. You push it down the side of the road. When a battery-powered moped has an issue, that battery was carried up to an apartment, 26 floors up. The fire consumes the apartment in seconds. What a dangerous proposition. Non-UL listed. In order to get a UL listed moped, you're at $4,000. Hawaii's students, servers, busboys, service industry professionals can't afford a $4,000 means of transportation. They depend on that $1,000 means of transportation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, if no further testimony in person, and are there any questions, members? Rep Ward.
It's Moped MD, or doctors of moped. Are you a PhD or a doctor, or you just that's your DBA, please? Question. You said there are 25,000 mopeds. Oh, sorry. You can run for office if you want.
Okay. What was that?
You said there were 25,000 mopeds in Hawaii.
There are 25,000 registered mopeds in Hawaii.
Okay, how many Harley hogs are there?
From what I understand, there's tens of thousands of motorcycles. Hogs, I'm not sure.
Okay, do a decibel comparison of a moped and a Harley hog.
A Harley hog is usually going to be louder.
Exactly, and they go through the same process as the small ones. But yet, why have we not been able to cool the pipes of the hogs?
Well, like I said earlier, from what I understand from my safety inspector colleagues in the car and motorcycle industry, they don't really have a technical sound check like we do.
And why not?
I'm not sure. It would be good to check with them, which is why I proposed the possibility of including a sound check for those two particular types of safety inspections too, in order to prevent loud cars and motorcycles, which would extend the range of noise pollution, suppression overall on traffic vehicles, motor vehicles, beyond just mopeds, which is a very small segment of the overall motor vehicles on the road.
Overall, your testimony seems to be beware of the EV mopeds. Is that?
That is not true. However, I'm just saying that they are an addition to and not a replacement for gas-powered mopeds as a form of convenient, accessible, economical transportation, personal transportation in Hawaii.
Was it you or someone else who said beware of a Chinese plug-in because he's going to blow up?
That wasn't me.
Who was that? Okay, I want to, Chair, if I may, that sounds spooky.
Okay, one more question, but then we need to move on.
Do you have any other questions?
No, thank you, Doctor.
Thank you very much.
What's with the mysterious, you plug in a Chinese?
Yeah, so
blows
when you buy a very cheap moped, electric moped, and we brought them in, so different manufacturers use very similar components that are already DOT and UL approved. That's a simple connector that is on the moped that you can actually plug your charger. And the different manufacturers use the same connector, but the battery of each one of those mopeds have different technologies. So you have some mopeds with lead-acid batteries, and you have mopeds with lithium-ion batteries. But the chargers theoretically should not be connected and exchange. A battery charger for a acid battery should not be plugged into a lithium-ion battery, and that's what happened. And when you do that, it's an immediate fire. The fire is guaranteed because the battery starts swelling and it's going to explode.
So it's the wrong instrument. It's not necessarily the Chinese instrument, or they happen to make the...
They make the same connector,
they make it.
and we cannot control that, even though we do tell them, can you do this, can you do that? That's on a very cheap moped, a $1,000 moped, which is compared with a gas moped. But if you pay $3,000 to $4,000, that's not going to happen because they have their own custom connectors. That's what I tried to say.
How many of
It's
those
just a
are blown up?
repetition of what we've already heard in your previous testimony.
Say it again?
I think we're just having him deliver his testimony a second
Well,
time.
no, I want to know how many have blown up in Hawaii. Maybe he's giving us a warning, Madam Chair.
So for sure, 5 of them came out in the TV. The case I'm talking about did not come out on the TV. So at least 5. New York, way more than that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. All right, if no further questions, we'll move on to the last bill on the agenda. House Bill 2020. This is amending the definition of renewable energy producer to allow producers to sell to entities other than electric utility. I think this relates to what is allowable on state land. So first up to testify, we have State Energy Office in support.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, Member. Maria Tomei, Hawaii State Energy Office. We stand on our written testimony in support with the recommended revision. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have DLNR on Zoom or in person, I'm not sure.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Luke Sarvis with the Department of Land and Natural Resources. Send in a written testimony and be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have, I have 2 testimonies submitted from DLNR. Is there someone else here from DLNR that wanted to testify? Okay.
That was a backup.
Okay, got it. And Public Utilities Commission.
Hi, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, member of the committee. My name is Grace Ralph with the Public Utilities Commission. We'll stand on our written testimony, but would be happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Then we have Hawaiian Electric.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm James Abraham, testifying on behalf of Hawaiian Electric, providing comments on House Bill 2020. The goal of this bill is to enable wheeling by the state, wheeling of electricity. We do have concerns that this bill is premature because wheeling has not been established in Hawaii or implemented by the Public Utilities Commission. As provided in our written testimony, wheeling is very complex and it requires a delicate balancing to ensure equity and the success of a wheeling program given our isolated grids here in Hawaii. And for these reasons, Hawaiian Electric would support the PUC opening an investigatory docket into intragovernmental wheeling so that they could determine whether intragovernmental wheeling is feasible and in the public interest in Hawaii. and it's possible that the results of that docket could determine whether this bill is necessary. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. And that is everyone we had who requested to submit testimony in person. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, questions? Rep. Ward.
Thank you, Chair. HECO, are you, please. Are you saying that HECO is not interested in diversification, i.e. if hydrogen comes out, you guys don't want to get into it? Or, I'm not sure I'm clear on what you said.
Sorry, this bill specifically concerns wheeling of electricity.
And wheeling means?
Wheeling means the production of electricity in one area and then the transmission of that electricity over a public utilities transmission and distribution lines to be used at another site.
Right?
I'm sorry?
Competitors using your electric lines. Am I not understanding the bill?
So what this bill seems to do is alter a definition so it would enable the state to, lease land or use its land for the purposes of wheeling. So it removes the requirement that they sell renewable energy produced on state land to the public utility.
Define wheeling again, please, in street language.
Yeah, in general, what it means is to have production of electricity on one site to be consumed or used on another site. So you're not using it at that same property. So it's different than having a solar farm or solar panels on your roof where you're producing the energy and using it on site. Here we're talking about wheeling it, which means using the public utilities, Hawaiian Electric, for example, our transmission and distribution lines to take that energy, in theory, and have it consumed on another area of the island.
And you don't like that?
Well, again, as provided in our written testimony, that we do have a lot of concerns around the equity with wheeling, for instance, the impact on non-wheeling customers. So,
example.
So, one example is that the folks who are going to benefit from wheeling are those who can afford it, right? So we believe that.
How so? How do they benefit?
So what people who contract to wheel and obtain energy through wheeling, they'll be able to lock in, these very low rates of electricity. And what we would prefer is that these solar.
Okay, can we summarize and stick to the contents of the bill?
Madam Chair, you still haven't got the street language yet.
Yeah, sorry.
Do you want me to do it? Do you want me to do it for you?
So we're talking about burning fossil fuel, or are we burning?
No, we're talking about renewable energy. So what we would prefer.
Let me interject and say I think there's a misunderstanding of what the bill does because this isn't allowing wheeling. So the conversation is a little bit off track. Yeah. But if you did want to talk about wheeling, we had a couple wheeling bills in a prior agenda. I know, but I think he might be mistaken.
So if he doesn't understand it, I don't understand it. If he does understand.
Well, let's have that discussion offline because we had other bills relating to wheeling.
If I'm going to vote on it, Madam Chair, I would rather know what it is rather than take a wing and a whistle.
Okay. Well, we're not voting on wheeling, so can we keep the questions to the matter of the bill?
Okay. Yeah, I apologize. Apologize for the confusion, Rep. Ward. Just looking at the preamble, it talks about the definition being changed to allow renewable energy producers to sell to entities other than the electricity, or other than the electric utility.
I initially started my question.
So that is kind of what we see as wheeling, and that's how we see this bill allowing.
My question was, you guys don't want to diversify, or you don't want any competition other than your own electrical production? That was the question I asked.
Yes, I don't think that is a very direct question to the concept of wheeling. I think wheeling has a lot of.
Okay, we're going in circles. Thank you. I have a question.
You're like a wheel.
Thank you. You can go. Energy Office. Can you explain maybe what this bill does for the edification of committee members?
Aloha, Chair. It's my understanding that this section of the law, 171-95, has to do with DLNRs leasing, how they lease land, and which projects would be eligible for the direct, for the direct lease, not having to go to auction first. And so that it's really, if I were going to write the bill description, I would have described it as allowing DLNR to use direct leasing to projects, including those that produce electricity and fuel.
So it's basically adding other types of energy to a sort of outdated definition of that, what can be bypass that auction process.
Right,
Okay,
so
and
it's
so-
what DLNR is allowed to do rather than what the utility is allowed to do, or what producers are, who they have to sell,
Yes,
so we
thank
interpreted
you.
it that way.
So I think
Thanks.
Hiko's interpretation is a little
Okay, thank you.
mistaken. Okay, thank you very much. All right, we will recess for decision-making. All right, reconvening for decision-making, 9:30 a.m. agenda, Tuesday, February 8th. First up on the agenda, we have House Bill 1688. This is the EPR needs assessment. For this, we're going to defer decision-making to Tuesday, February 13th at the end of the 9:30 a.m. agenda, just to work on this with the stakeholders and get the language right. And for HB 2740, I think we're going to defer this at this time, just based on testimony and focus our efforts on the needs assessment bill instead. House Bill 1897, hotel toiletries. So for this, we're going to amend the definition of personal care product so that it will have the same meaning as in section 321-30.5, and we'll defect the date to the year 3000 and move this forward. Members, any discussion on House Bill 1897? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Thank you. Voting on HB 1897, Chair wants to pass with amendments. Both Chair and Vice Chair vote ayes. Rep. Gates?
Aye.
Rep. Kahaloa? Aye. Rep. Peruso is excused. Rep. Woodson? Aye. And Rep. Ward? Aye. Chair, your motion is adopted.
Thank you. On House Bill 1896 relating to environmental protection, this is phasing out the use of the personal care products and food packaging containing PFAS. A couple technical amendments. We're going to remove the term ingredient since it's in the definitions but not used anywhere in the bill. And we'll clean up the definition of manufacturer to be, manufacturer means any entity that produces or manufactures a product covered under this section, or in the case of a cosmetic product, the person whose name appears on the label of the product pursuant to requirements of Title 21 CFR, Section 701.12. And defect the date to the year 3000. And then maybe we'll note in the committee report on this, we do want to work with the stakeholders to come up with a appropriate definition for intentionally added. We purposefully drafted this bill to comport with specifically what the people who had testified in opposition to it today at the end of last session said they would be okay with moving forward out of conference. So this is what happens, but we'll just make that note in there. We'll continue working on it and try to get agreement on that. With that, members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Voting on HB 1896, Chair chooses to pass with amendments, and both Chair and Vice Chair vote ayes. Seeing excused absence of Rep. Peruso, any members here with reservations or noes? Seeing none, Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. And then relating to plastic pollution, House Bill 1585, this is looking at prohibiting polystyrene food containers used by state agencies. We'll move this forward with a defective date, defecting the date to the year 3000, just to have a vehicle to possibly come back to this if we find out that it's not already covered by the various county ordinances. So we'll just wait to hear from Department of Health on that and then see if we have any reason to continue entertaining this idea or not. So with that, Vice Chair, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Thank you. Voting on HB 1585, Chair's recommendation passed with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote ayes. Excuse absence of Rep. Peruso. Any members here with noes or reservations? Seeing none, Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. And then House Bill 2665 relating to the state plan. This is the Green Infrastructure Bill. On this, we're going to defect the date to the year 3000 and move it forward.
Excuse me, Chair. Did you skip 2562?
We're on it.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I did. House Bill 2562, just based on testimony, we're going to defer this bill.
Oh, defer. Sorry.
And now moving on to 2665, apologies. So 2562, defer. 2665, on this, we're going to move it forward with a defective date to the year 3000. Any discussion, members? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Excuse me, Chair. What are we going to do at 2562?
Defer.
Oh, defer. Okay. Good decision.
All right, glad you approve.
Okay, vote?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
Voting on HB 2665, Chair, recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote ayes. Excused is Rep. Caruso. Any members here voting with noes or reservations? Seeing none, Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. And then House Bill 2027 relating to light pollution. We have some technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style, and we'll defect the date to the year 3000 and move this bill forward as well. Members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Thank you. Voting on HB 2027, Chair recommends to pass with amendments. Chair, Vice Chair votes aye. Excused is Rep. Caruso. Members, anyone voting with noes or reservations? Seeing none, measure is adopted.
Thank you. And then House Bill 1890 relating to noise pollution. Just based on testimony, we're going to defer this bill at this time.
Good decision.
Moving on to House Bill 2020 relating to renewable energy. This is the addressing that auction question on state land. So for this, we're going to adopt the suggested amendment of the Hawaii State Energy Office. We'll make some technical amendments for clarity. We will defect the date to the year 3000, and we'll just add a note to the committee report that nothing in this measure is intended to construe wheeling, to clarify that to anyone who reads it in the future. With that, members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Voting on HB 2020, Chair recommends to pass with amendments. Chair, Vice Chair vote ayes. Excused is Rep. Caruso. Any members here voting with noes or reservations? Seeing none, Chair, your measure is adopted.
Okay, we will recess, or we will adjourn this hearing, and then we're going to reconvene our decision-making agenda. So we are reconvening the hearing from last week to decision, the 9:31 agenda, Thursday, February 8th. We're going to make decisions on two measures. First up, we have House Bill 2297 relating to greenhouse gas emissions, and this is the Clean Fuel Standard Bill. We're going to make a number of amendments. So I'll try to go through these quickly. First off, on pages 3 and 4, we're just going to change the words diesel and gasoline to alternative fuels. We will fill in the blanks and the phase-in dates at the bottom of page 3 and top of page 4 so that this will read, reducing carbon intensity by at least 10% below 2019 levels by the year 2035, and at least 50% below 2019 levels by the year 2045. On page 4, line 3, we'll just change that date from 2025 to 2026. And on line 5, we'll change that from net to life cycle. On page 11, we'll strike through greenhouse gas sequestrations, but we will also add transportation of raw materials and finished fuels. On page 5, for subsections 9 and 11, we're going to strike these from this section, which says that HSEO shall adopt rules, and move these to the section that says they may adopt rules on these aspects, just to give them a little more flexibility. On page 6, subsection 2, we're going to change the language in that so that for subsection 2, the new language will read, mechanisms whereby an electric utility or energy producer can generate credits for electricity or gaseous fuels used in transportation and develop a mechanism to track and generate credits for the uses of these fuels based on existing best practices in use in other states with clean fuel programs. States should consult with industry stakeholders to determine these mechanisms. On the same page, page 6, line 15, after the word rail, we're going to insert and military. And then we're going to amend the definition of alternative fuel for this section so that it reads, alternative fuel means any fuel that is not gasoline or diesel and is used for transportation purposes, including but not limited to ethanol, biomass-based diesel, renewable diesel, sustainable aviation fuel, electricity, biomethane, biogasoline, renewable natural gas, fuels from carbon capture and utilization, electrofuels, and hydrogen. And then we will defect the date to the year 3000 and move this bill forward. With that, members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Voting on HB 2297, Chair's recommendation passed with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote ayes. Rep. Gates?
Aye.
Rep. Kahaloa?
Aye.
Rep. Peruso is excused. Rep. Woodson? And Rep. Ward? Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. And then last bill we have to vote on today is House Bill 2767, and this is relating to amendments to the biofuel tax credit. So some changes on this bill as well. On page 2, we're going to specify during the 20-year credit period, so we'll add 20-year in place of 10-year. On that same page, on line 21, after the word value, we'll add the words produced and, so that will read produced and sold. On page 3, lines 12 and 13, so we'll strike through this additional dollar credit for renewable fuels with a life cycle greenhouse gas emissions, 75% or below that of fossil fuel. Instead, we'll do the additional dollar credit per gallon for production. Can you guys please take the conversation outside? Thank you. For the production of sustainable aviation fuel. And then we'll add a definition to the bill of sustainable aviation fuel that will read, sustainable aviation fuel is an alternative fuel as defined in this section that is used in aviation. On page 4, subsection 3 at the bottom of the page here, instead of specifying that to qualify for this tax credit, the fuel has to have a greenhouse gas emissions lower than that of fossil fuel, we're going to change that language to say at least 25% lower than that of fossil fuel. And then we're going to remove this part that says the Energy Office would have to determine whether the life cycle greenhouse gas emissions for each type is below 75%, because we removed that dollar extra credit for that as well. And then on this page as well, we'll blank out the cap amount of 80 million and just leave that blank for future consideration for now. And then we'll change the language on line 10, strike through divided between all, and clarify that will be tax credit will be allocated proportionally to each eligible taxpayer. And I think that is all the changes to this bill. So we will also defect the date to the year 3000 and move this forward. Members, any discussion? If not, thank you for listening to me with that. If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Thank you. Voting on HB 2767, Chair's recommendation passed with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote ayes. Excused is Rep. Peruso. Any members here voting with noes or reservations? Seeing none, Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. And with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.